How we doing, everybody? Good morning. I'm Mike with Custom Drapery and Blinds. We're right out of Burnsville, Minnesota, so just across the river. We're a local company and we're full-service window treatments. So we come out to your home, I do shop-at-home service at no charge. I help you decide what kind of window treatments you need, help you find what'll fit the budget, and then we do all the install, we warranty everything, and we guarantee everything. So full service, want to make sure whatever you get, you're happy at the end of it and it lasts a long time is kind of our motto. So. As I've kind of said to everybody as we're coming in, like I say, I do everything pretty a cappella and casual around here, so I don't have a whole list of itineraries or anything we necessarily have to get to, just some different products to talk about and different ideas. Some questions I get all the time. Is people still doing draperies anymore? You know, what do we do for sliding glass doors? People do a lot of motorized stuff. So just to kind of walk through some of those things. Draperies, I think, especially around here, I see a lot of draperies still, and I think they're beautiful products. You know, a lot of people do move away from draperies these days just because they're heavy and they're bulky a lot of times. So in rooms that are a little bit tighter, you know, sometimes we do just a side panel that'll give a little bit of a frame to a window, give a little bit of decoration, as opposed to something big and heavy that's going to pull apart and across the window. And then underneath that, maybe we do something a little bit more simple. Rather than our second set of shears, a lot of times these days we'll do, you know, a shade something like this where, gosh, I've still got the effect of a shear shade. I've got something that can still get me privacy. And if my sample will get along with me, roll it up and out of the way, and now I've got a clear view of the window. You know, a lot less bulk and a lot less maintenance, and maybe a little bit easier to decorate around than a big drapery and a second shear shade there. So a lot of options that way. Bedrooms. I get asked this question all the time. What do you do in bedrooms these days? My favorite product for a bedroom is a honeycomb shade. I use these all the time, really simple. I'd say probably half the market has one of these in their house somewhere. I love the cordless control for a bedroom just because it keeps the bedroom clean and clutter-free. It looks good. If there's kids or pets around, that's safer. My generation's the last that'll know cords on shades. We're trying to get away from those, and this is the biggest way that we do that. The other things I love about these products is we can do good blackouts on them. So for me, I need to be able to sleep. If I even leave my phone flipped the wrong way at night, the blinking light wakes me up. So I'd crawl into an interior closet if I don't have total blackout. You know, something like these, we can do a little liner on the inside, really small gap there, so it really stops a lot of light. We can also do things like top down, where you're able to drop the top of the shade and see out over the top. So in my last house, I was in a townhome and I had 70-inch by 70-inch windows, and I'm facing my neighbor 10 feet away from me on the first floor. I'd have never gotten any light in my home without that kind of a top-down function. You know, so there's some fun, clever products that way too. The other big one that I get all the time is what do people do on patio doors? And I think we all remember vertical blinds, and those clap as we go side to side, or they break, or they fall down, or the dog got in between and wrecked them. I hate them as much as anybody. They can work, they're fine, but the ones I like a lot better, those honeycomb shades we were just talking about, we can turn those side to side and they can go right across your patio door, really simple like that. I think that's a really slick one. They work really well, they hold up over time, they're compact, and I think they tend to keep a lot more light coming in than a lot of vertical blinds do, which in a lot of spaces it's an important thing. A lot of times our patio doors are kind of closed off in a dining room or something where there aren't lots of sources of light, and so if I can keep that as a good source of light, I think it's a good one. And then I get asked all the time, I hear about motors. Do people do motors all over the place? And my short answer is not all over the place because there's some cost to it, but it's getting less expensive. So we've got all kinds of products where we can just touch a button and watch them go up and down. I can set them up to work on a smartphone and follow the sunrise and the sunset, all kinds of options. Most people, we're going to look at a motorized system if we've got a window that's too high to be able to reach, or maybe behind a couch. I've also done sometimes where, gosh, I'm just getting to be at a time in my life where I'm having a hard time moving my draperies around all the time, and it's a lot easier to have them just move on their own. So I've got all kinds of systems. You know, obviously, the more we want it to do, the more it costs. But something like this, from some of my manufacturers, is inexpensive as about $50 to add to a shade. So that can be a very reasonable way to get away from having a cord and just have a very simple way to set your shades up and down. Something like this is usually just powered by AA batteries housed behind the shade. So it's a really simple, you know, not a lot of intrusion in your home as far as having all kinds of wiring or anything like that, and very easy to change over time. So One other one that I haven't shown here, and just to show it off because it's a unique product and I get some oohs and ahs on it just from seeing it. This is a product we call Allure. And I showed you that sheer shade earlier. This is kind of a sister product to it, where we can open it up and have a little bit of a view through, but I think a little bit more striking as opposed to a little bit more formal there. Or I can get it closed off. Where I really love this is if you have a living room with a view that you want to accentuate or really make one window in the home pop. I think it can really be an interesting look. The other thing I really like about this is because it's just 2 flat layers of material with nothing in between here, it tends to stay very, very clean over time. It's very easy to work with. I've done these on patio doors where I put a pair of them there and you can roll them up and down. And when they're up, they're just put away and tucked and clean. So I like that about them too. That was all I brought with me today. Does anybody have any questions or all kinds of the things that you're wondering about? Anything else I can show off?
So the last one you just showed us, that obviously does have the chain.
Yep.
It does not, is there an option to not have the chain?
There would be a motor would be the other option with this product in particular. I might have one manufacturer that even has a retractable cord, kind of like this one that we see here. This is a nice option if I don't want to have a loop hanging down, but I don't want to pay for a motor. A little bit simpler as far as the controls go, and I think a really sleek look too. I believe I can do that on that same shade, but that's one of those things where I'd say, let me call the manufacturer and double check. It's going to depend on your window sizes with all these and based on options and fabrics. I would say it's towards the top end of my products. On a patio door, I'd pulling a number out of the air, probably between $600 and $800 for the pair of them. On a window of this size, probably about $200 to $300 depending on options that you're picking out. I don't have one like that. I should have been that. There is one out there that works that way. I've never sold it. I don't think it works well. I don't think it's a good option. I do have some products that do similar things. I have a vertical blind that has sheer fabric wrapped around it. And it's hard for me to describe it without a picture, but it looks very similar to this or this. And so if I was doing this on a window, I usually do that product on the patio door, and they go very well together. Aside from that, like I say, I do a lot of the cellular shades side to side, and then we also have a woven wood drapery. So that's grasses, reeds, bamboo, woven together to create a fabric, and then moved across the patio like a drapery would be. What I like about it is that it's a little bit more put together in terms of the connections and how the drapery hangs. So it's a little bit more, I would say, clean and sleek than a normal drapery would be. So at a traffic area, I think it works very well at a patio door. And the other one that I have used quite a few times is a sliding panel setup, and I didn't bring those because they're very bulky. I usually tell people you want a little bit of extra space for those, so if you've got a very tight patio door, not my favorite product, but what that usually is about 3 to 5 panels, all about 1.5 feet wide, and you pull the first one and then the next one gets pulled along and so on, so you can draw that across a patio door very easily. Those are the most popular ones I have for patio doors, typically.
What about colors?
Colors are interesting. I would say the most popular colors that I see a lot of times these days do either go into kind of the grays and slates that we see here, or kind of earth tones. And I guess that's more represented by the samples up here. Browns, reds, golds, greens. I think most of my manufacturers are very, very good at updating and kind of staying on top of color trends without being too forward and putting in something that's going to be really dated immediately. To me, I usually look at permanent surfaces in your home. So I like to look at your furniture, if that's sticking around, or your flooring, or your countertops, or trim, something that's really hard to change. And that way, no matter what else you change, at least my shades are still tying into things in your home. I think that it's usually best to have as much of the decor flushed out as possible before we start picking these out, because I've got fewer options than Sherwin-Williams does. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to say, okay, how is the rest of this going to look, and now what actually goes with what I've got already. And to that end too, we also kind of want to think about, is this something I want to have for a long time? If it's one of these type of products that we're looking at where it's functional, yeah, I probably want to have that for 10 to 15 years, so I want to think about something really neutral. Or if I'm just putting up a valance that's really a specific, set of colorways and patterns, maybe I'm not looking at having it for 2 decades, so I can be a little bit more specific with it and move on if I didn't like it so much.
The one that is kind of like a clutch or whatever.
This one.
And that one does also have the up-down?
It does. This doesn't show it on this shade, but yep, what they do is they have a second rail just like this one right here, and you're able to drop that down. You do see a little couple of cords that hold everything up. It's not magic or anti-gravity, but that drops right down and you get full range of motion with that. So you could drop it all the way down to the bottom and just lift it up and go the other way too. Really a simple system, and I like them. That's my favorite part of these shades. I always tell people this story. My first thing that I did in the industry when I started 12 years ago was Mom and Dad needed new shades. And they live on a gravel road in Shakopee. They have 2 black labs. My dad smokes in the house still. It's kind of as messy of a situation as you could get. We did a fabric a little lighter than this. Mom thought that was too heavy and too dirty, so we got a little lighter than that. They've been up there for 12 years now, and they haven't cleaned them once. They still look brand new. So most of my products have good anti-static coatings on them. So something like the honeycomb shade, the solar shade and roller shades, those are going to stay clean for a very long time, and I've had very little trouble with cleaning. If you had to clean something like this, usually the manufacturer says a brush attachment on your vacuum. I would say wash that brush attachment first because your shade's probably cleaner. With some of my other products, wood blinds in particular, shutters, those still gather some dust, and there's really nothing I can do about them. What I say is every couple of weeks you want to turn the slats one way and take your Swiffer and get all the dust off, and turn them the other way and do it again. That one's not so much of a challenge. I think people know what they're getting into. The one I have that's kind of unique, I jokingly, but also kind of tongue-in-cheek and serious, for every one of these I always say I have 2 people come up to me and complain that bugs get caught in here. And that's just the nature of it, especially since the Asian lady beetles came to town and they're just everywhere, especially in windows, box elder bugs. I've had some people say, gosh, I don't know how I ever get them out. I have an 8-foot one and I try to poke in there with a stick and stop, don't do that. Can of air for your keyboard, just spray a little air in here, that'll get right out of there. You can do that same kind of a thing with these honeycomb shades too. If something got into one of those pockets, just a little shot of air there will get it out of there. I've heard of people using a hairdryer on cold, but I'd rather just get a $2 can of compressed air and use that because I think it's a little stronger and cleaner.
What about the strip?
Oh, no, it's okay.
Honeycomb as far as, is it really resilient, like to puncture, like say a cat claw?
To some degree, yes. No, I would say I warranty these products as long as you own them. I wouldn't sell them if I had reservations about them breaking down over time or being really flimsy. I think they're very durable. Nothing I can do to stand up to a cat who's really determined to destroy something, and you understand that, but in general, I'd say I've had very, very good luck. I could count on one hand how many times I've had pet damage cause me to replace one of these, and it's 40% of my career to sell those shades. I sell them so frequently, so I do have very good success with that. The other thing I'd say on patio doors, because I've mentioned this a few times there, I have really good success with pets and even with kids around these. Those vertical blinds, because there's space in between and they move, I can poke my face in between and play with them. This, there's nothing like that. It's a solid surface. So I find even rowdy dogs go around it and leave it alone and don't mess with the fabric. Well, it's somewhat. What I would say is with the anti-static coating on, airborne fur is not going to come up and cling to it. If Kitty rubs against it, I can't stop direct application of fur. That's still going to get on there. A little lint roller, a little bit of tape will get that right off, something like that. Good one?
Yeah, that striped shade.
Yep.
We were talking about how static and stuff, how long does that work for staying clean?
About the same way. Yep, so there's still the same anti-static coating on it. So I really have never had anybody call me up and say, gosh, how do I get this clean or what do I do with it? They should stay very clean over time. And again, there's nowhere here for anything to settle like there is on that other shade I showed. So I've really had fantastic success with it, even in lake homes, in the middle of the woods where, gosh, there's a lot of bugs and particulates and that kind of thing. They tend to stay very, very clean looking. There again, a brush attachment for a vacuum.
What's the
Maximum width?
yeah?
Very wide. It varies product to product and fabric to fabric. I would say we did a 40 foot by 40 foot shade for the XL Energy Center, so we can do very, very big shades. And if somebody can do it, we can do it. Just comes down to how big the manufacturer actually gets the fabric. My guess is on this fabric, without looking at a book, is about 8 foot wide, is probably as wide as those can go. Though something more like this, where it's a little bit more industrial, well, you can see them right here behind you, same shade. We can go huge with those things. So if there's a will, there's a way. I actually just had a customer 2 weeks ago who needed a 14 foot by 14 foot motorized shade like this, and we got that done. So. And I saw the little piece go. I'll get that in a minute. Any other big questions? We just had a couple folks walk in. Did you guys have any big questions for the blind guy? Hey, that's okay. Well, I thank you guys all so much for coming by. I really appreciate it. I do have some little thank you cards for stopping by with a little $100 off of window treatments from us, so make sure to stop and see me. Thank you to the cameraman for facilitating us here. Appreciate it. We'll see you down at the rest of the show. Enjoy it, guys.